What's going on, everybody? GoodMicWork commentaries back at you finally with another edition of The One-Off. This is the first video I've done in a few days. I, of course, have been on vacation for the last 8 or 9 days, and as usual, as most of you know, when you return home from a vacation and you go back to work, you've got a lot of catch-up to do. So I kind of returned into a hellacious week at work here, and I actually don't have enough time to do a big hour-and-a-half long podcast discussing everything that I missed while I was gone. But what I do have time for is a couple of short episodes. So what I decided to do this week, in lieu of my normal podcast episode, is release a couple of one-off videos on a couple of topics, and then next week I will be back to my regular schedule that you're used to here on the channel. So in addition to this video here, later on this weekend I will release another short video just briefly recapping what I missed at Extreme Rules, the post-Extreme Rules Raw and SmackDown, and the current rumored card for SummerSlam and what we're looking at with all of these storylines. So that'll be coming to you in a couple of days, probably Saturday or Sunday sometime. And then this Monday, I'll be back up as usual to do a live Raw watch along. I was, much to my surprise and all of yours, able to get my ass up here last Monday for Raw to do a live stream. I was not scheduled to be home until early in the morning. I didn't even sleep on Sunday and came right home and landed here in San Diego at 9:30 in the morning and got a little power nap in and decided to come up in time for Monday Night Raw. So I was happy that I was able to come up and join you for that, but things have been a little bit in disarray on the channel because of my vacation, so I'm trying now to work towards getting back to normal. So the topic for this video, of course, as I'm sure you can see here, is Hulk Hogan's reinstatement into the WWE Hall of Fame and him potentially returning to the company in some fashion, and he was even at Extreme Rules this past Sunday to talk to the talent. And this, of course, is a very controversial topic because it has now been 3 years since Hulk Hogan was just completely deleted from the WWE Hall of Fame and fired from his Legends contract and all of that, and WWE completely washed their hands of the guy because of the comments that became public when he was recorded without him knowing it, and he was throwing out some racial slurs. Now, this is all tied in to the big sex tape that was released and the big lawsuit with Gawker Media that Hogan actually won, put them out of business, I believe, and the whole thing was a complete mess. He got caught screwing Bubba the Love Sponge's wife. It was videotaped, it was released, and it completely ruined Hulk Hogan's life. And then to make matters worse, during the progress of the trial and some of the evidence that was come to light and made public, some audio recordings were released from the same tape, I believe, where Hogan is discussing his daughter Brooke's boyfriend and referred to him as the N-word more than once. And that immediately made WWE get rid of Hulk Hogan, and it pretty much, ruined his life, or ruined what we knew of Hulk Hogan at that time, and he was completely devastated. It was one low blow after another. First, the guy's life falls apart, his personal life, with the debacle that was that reality show on VH1, and then his son Nick paralyzing that kid in the car accident, his very strange relationship with his daughter, his split from his wife of 25 plus years or whatever it was, and then the different array of girlfriends and lawsuits and personal problems this guy had. It was insane. And I grew very, very tired and very, very bitter towards Hulk Hogan after a while. Many of you remember years ago, 7, 8 years ago, when I first started doing commentaries, I was ranting on Hulk Hogan and what a disappointment and a failure he turned out to be. And looking back, I kind of regret being that harsh on the guy because, I don't like to project that much anger on in these commentaries if I can help it. So back in those days, I think I was really fed up with Hulk Hogan, and I didn't really truly know how to express that. And here we are years later. Hogan seemed like he came around despite all of the family turmoil. He was back in the WWE making some appearances. He was even with the company despite the sex tape coming out, because I think WWE had sympathy for him because he was taped against his will. He had no clue that he was being filmed, and it was leaked and released. And there's been many WWE stars, most notably Paige and some others, that have had either nude photos leaked or nude videos leaked, or in some cases, sex videos leaked. So WWE stuck with Hogan through that, but then when the audio was released of him saying some pretty racial shit, they had no choice but to cut him loose. So here we are 3 years later. Hulk Hogan has gone really out of his way to do a lot of media appearances, trying to own up to his mistakes. He's been very, very remorseful for his acts. He feels terrible about it. And, a lot of people say, black, white, whatever you are, a lot of Hogan's colleagues in wrestling, people that have known him, even people that have disliked Hogan, have all come out and said that they never felt that Hulk Hogan was a racist. They don't believe he has a racist bone in his body. He just has a terrible way of using language. Hogan tried to chalk it up to him growing up in Florida, and being around a lot of racial diversity and racial issues, and he was hearing that word a lot, and it was a word that was tossed around quite regularly. And I can somewhat attest to that as a guy that grew up in the South. As a kid, I grew up in North Carolina, and I do have to admit I heard that word a lot from whites and blacks. So I know in the South, it's a very, very common word, especially back in the day, to use. And it wasn't really that rare to hear somebody just casually throw the word out. You wouldn't see a white guy say that directly to a black guy, and insult him. You didn't see that very often unless the white guy wanted to get fucking killed. But for the most part, people just did casually toss around that word a lot, at least in the South, at least where I grew up. So when Hogan says that, I can kind of see that. But still, you should not be speaking that way. And Hogan pointed out himself that you never know when you're going to be recorded. And if you're around other people or some people that you may not know if you can trust or not, that's probably not the smartest language to use. And despite Hulk Hogan being an idiot and using offensive racial language like that, a lot of people don't believe that he's racist. So Hogan had a lot of apologizing to do. He really had to apologize hard. I remember right after this happened, he did a couple of media interviews where he was brought to tears a couple of times. He really knew that his life was just fucked. I mean, if it wasn't bad enough as it was, now he's thrown into this pile with all these other douchebag celebrities like Paula Deen and the LA Clippers guy that have been caught just acting like complete racist assholes. And now Hogan is in a group that he does not want to be in. That's just not something, especially in today's day and age, that you want to be associated with, because it is essentially career suicide. So I have to hand it to Hogan for at least owning up to this and not shying away from discussing it, shying away from media appearances. He really tried his hardest to, get some forgiveness from the fans. And I think it's going to be easier for Hogan to get forgiveness from wrestling fans and his wrestling peers, but from the general public, I don't think Hogan is really looked at very positively anymore from people outside of the wrestling business, if you know what I mean. But it really seemed like Hulk Hogan's final stop on his 3-year-long apology tour ended at Extreme Rules this past Sunday when he was backstage and he spoke to the talent. Apparently this was even filmed. They're going to release this. We'll probably see that in the next couple of months because WWE is going to try to profit off of this whole thing and now film Hulk Hogan's road back to redemption and talking to the talent and trying to make amends and all that stuff. It's probably going to make for a very good piece on the WWE network. Apparently when he talked to the talent, he was received very warmly by everybody. They were very respectful to him and they appreciated his comments and his apology and his lecture on to the rest of the talent to be smart, be careful what you say and do because you never know when you're going to be audio recorded or video recorded, and that's something that you really didn't have to deal with in the 70s and 80s and even 90s. Think about it. Think about how bad the conversations and how horrible the language probably was in a professional wrestling locker room in the 1960s or the 1970s or the 1980s. You think the N-word wasn't tossed around a time or two back then? If we only knew how many people in the wrestling business probably use this language, we would be mortified, absolutely appalled. But back in the day, you didn't have to worry about being recorded or being audio recorded by a cell phone that's in anybody's pocket. Everybody has a video camera and an audio recorder in their pocket. Every single motherfucking one of us has that device, which for somebody like me at my age is just mind-blowing to know that we have gone from a giant $3,000 video cassette camcorder that you would carry around on your shoulder like a sack of fucking potatoes to a tiny object that can now fit in your front pocket. So times have changed and times are very different than they were back in the day. And although I think Hogan is a dumb son of a bitch for what he said, I absolutely promise you there has been a million times worse things done and said in the wrestling business that we will never know about because none of it was recorded. So, I'm kind of split on this. I read both statements on Hulk Hogan's reinstatement from the New Day and Titus O'Neil because if there's any opinions on Hulk Hogan's reinstatement that I really feel like are worth reading, it would be the opinions from the African American community. So I'm going around trying to find black WWE wrestlers commenting on this situation, because those are the opinions that I'm going to hold the most dear. To me, it's up to them how they feel about it. And if they don't take offense to this and they can forgive Hulk Hogan, then maybe we all can. But both New Day and Titus O'Neil both said very similar things. In New Day's case, they kind of took the indifferent approach in their statement. They acknowledged Hulk Hogan's legacy and his value to professional wrestling. They appreciated his apology and his speech to the locker room, but at the same time, you could very much tell that it doesn't sit well with them at all with what Hulk Hogan said, and it probably doesn't sit well with a lot of African American wrestlers out there. But at the same time, they believe in second chances. They believe, in redemption and things like that, and they are okay with Hulk Hogan being in the Hall of Fame. They acknowledge the fact that his career is like no other, and he absolutely belongs in the Hall of Fame. It's more of just a disappointment issue with them, and that they are not really concerned about it. They're okay with it. They don't really care one way or the other, but they did feel like they didn't need to release a joint statement just giving their thoughts on it, because a lot of people are questioning them, I'm sure, whenever they are in public. And with Titus O'Neil, it was kind of the same thing. He also felt the need to release a very lengthy statement on some of his opinions and his feelings on the matter. There were some rumors going around that he had not attended the meeting or walked out of Extreme Rules or protested Hogan coming back. That all turned out to be false. I didn't even really hear that rumor until after the fact anyway. But Titus released a pretty lengthy statement, and I saw his on Twitter. And again, much like the New Day, he says he believes in second chances. He's okay with Hulk Hogan coming back in, but at the same time, he does not appreciate the harsh racist language that was used. So I think a lot of the reaction that he's getting from the black wrestlers in WWE and in wrestling in general is pretty much the same. They want to forgive Hulk Hogan. They really do, but it's really tough to get past some of that stuff when you actually hear it. When you physically hear what he said, you're like, wow, I cannot believe that actually came out of his mouth. And Titus O'Neil also didn't seem to appreciate the fact that Hulk Hogan was using the fact that he didn't know he was being recorded as an excuse. And I don't know if that's 100% fact. I mean, I know Hulk Hogan has said that, hey, I didn't know how I was being recorded. And he warned the locker room to be careful what you say and do, because everybody can record you, like I said. But at the same time, there have been other interviews where Hogan does admit that he was stupid for using that language and foolish and embarrassed by it. And he wasn't blaming it just on being unknowingly recorded. He definitely acknowledges that he used hurtful, offensive language, and as a celebrity and somebody in his position, he should have never said. So really, when it comes to, general wrestling fans, we all have our opinions. We all have our opinions about this, but the ones that I'm most interested, at least in this particular subject, is I want to hear the black opinion on this. And for all of my African-American listeners and people that are fans of mine, let me know what you think in the comments below. I would really genuinely like to hear your opinions on this, and if you can get past this with Hulk Hogan, or if you're never going to forgive him, or if you take issue with it, or you're offended by it, or whatever, because your opinions are the ones that I want to see and read. So let me know what you think in the comments below. And of course, this is also a big deal with the Hall of Fame. And both Titus O'Neil and the New Day and pretty much everybody has no problem acknowledging that Hulk Hogan has a Hall of Fame career. In most cases, you would think that the Hall of Fame isn't based solely on your career. It also has to be who you are personally. And when you look at the Hall of Fame, it is loaded with hypocrisy right now. And that was the biggest pushback I got from the fans. And when this news broke, I, of course, was on the East Coast on vacation, and my Twitter feed was loaded with a lot of fans angry. I mean, they're yelling at me like, what the fuck do I have to do with any of this? But they're saying how much bullshit it is that Hogan's back in the Hall of Fame, yet WWE won't put China in, when the two of them are kind of in the same boat. They both have sex tapes out there. And to this day, I think one of the biggest mistakes Triple H has ever made in his career was going on Steve Austin's podcast and making the flimsy, stupid excuse that China can't go into the Hall of Fame because what if a kid Googles her name? Well, a kid could Google a lot of names in the WWE Hall of Fame, like Sonny, like Hulk Hogan, like Jimmy Snuka, all sorts of guys, and they're going to see shit equally as bad, if not worse, than what China did. And you know what? The fans that are angry about that are exactly right. They're exactly fucking right. Why is Hogan allowed to be in the Hall of Fame, but China is not? And I think a big part of that is because each one of these weird, controversial controversial situations needs to be judged differently. They can't all fall under the same umbrella because they're different circumstances. As much as I love Chyna and her career anyway, her wrestling career anyway, and what a pioneer she was for women, she is not Hulk Hogan. These two legacies are not even close. When you talk about the legacy that Hulk Hogan left on the business compared to the legacy that Chyna left on the business, it's completely out of balance. Hulk Hogan is eons ahead of Chyna as far as the mark he made on the wrestling business. So naturally, WWE is going to do whatever they can to get Hulk Hogan back into the family here, even if they have to make a documentary about his redemption story, which is apparently what they are doing. And they're going to release probably a very sympathetic documentary on Hulk Hogan on the WWE network here in a couple of months to try to get the rest of the fans that might be holdouts here to forgive him as well. So even though it makes perfectly logical sense that Chyna should be in the Hall of Fame, considering everybody else who is also in, you can't really use that as a reason to keep Hulk Hogan out. One thing I will say about Chyna, unlike somebody like Owen Hart, which is going to take a major miracle for WWE to even be able to put him into the Hall of Fame, unlike Owen and unlike Chris Benoit, who will never be in, Chyna is somebody that I feel is going to go in. I think the fan outrage over this, the fan response, everybody calling for Chyna to go into the Hall of Fame, eventually WWE will cave in on this and they'll do it. I firmly believe that Chyna will be in the Hall of Fame one day. The fact that she's not right now, there's nothing we can do about that. There's a lot of guys that WWE have taken forever to put into the Hall of Fame. So if Chyna gets in the next 5 years, then all is fine. So Chyna isn't one of those wrestlers who I feel can never go in. Despite how stupid Triple H was and despite what he said on Austin's podcast, eventually Chyna, I believe, will go in. Owen and Benoit are going to be the two that probably will never go in. Owen because of Martha and Benoit because of what he did. But yeah, when you look at the Hall of Fame, they booted Hogan out but kept Sonny in. Snuka, I believe, is still in, and he murdered somebody. And it's just a mess. So each one of these situations, I believe, has to be judged differently. And you can't just generalize and throw everybody under one set of rules because each circumstance is different. And WWE, when you're a big company like this, you have to make decisions that are going to be somewhat popular and somewhat unpopular. You have to be able to, accept the backlash that's going to come with this. And I think WWE's trying to do their best to kind of ease Hogan back in. It's been 3 years now. He's said something stupid. He's done a lot of stupid shit. This isn't the first dumb thing Hogan has ever done. He is a habitual liar. He's made himself look ridiculous on more than one occasion. But this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Whenever you start using hateful racial slurs like this, you gots to go. So Hogan, it is what it is. What am I going to say about it? Everybody wants to know my opinions on it, so there you go. I feel very much the same way as the New Day and Titus O'Neil do. I'm perfectly fine with Hogan being back into the Hall of Fame. I'm not offended by it. I appreciate Hulk Hogan feeling remorse for what he said and did and going around and trying to make amends the best he could over the last 3 years, keeping his nose clean. Hulk Hogan at times has appeared to be kind of untrustworthy. So if we all welcome him back here and then he disappoints us again, then I guess we're to blame for being dumb enough to welcome the Hulkster back into the wrestling family. But he's back now, and I've always felt that at the end of the day, all my issues, my past issues with Hulk Hogan, really stem from the fact that I was proud that he was the Babe Ruth character. I mean, that Hulk Hogan character and what he did in the 1980s, he changed professional wrestling so much. I mean, there will never be a bigger name in wrestling ever again than Hulk Hogan. And my problem was that he was embarrassing and he was tarnishing the legacy of not only himself, but WWE. And this started all the way back in the 90s, in the 80s with the say your prayers, take your vitamins and drink your milk or whatever the fuck. And then it turns out that he took steroids and the countless amount of personal issues that he dealt with in the late 90s and the early 2000s that brought him where he is today. The fact that he's still even in WWE in some capacity and has been for the past few years is pretty amazing. So when Hogan was first released 3 years ago, we all talked about it back then. We said that it felt that eventually he would be back in the company. I kind of thought it might take a year, maybe two, but now it's been 3 and he's back, and this really isn't that surprising at the end of the day. Because you guys remember, I remember, the day that he was released, I think the door was left open for him to return if, the public kind of forgives him and he, does his best to make things right. And I guess WWE felt that he has done a good enough job and they want to bring the Hulkster name and the Hulkamania name back on to TV while they still can. Now, this has also sparked a a lot of speculation as to what Hulk Hogan will be doing in WWE. And I couldn't believe during Extreme Rules how many people thought that he was going to come out there and replace Kane and win the tag team titles with Daniel Bryan. A lot of people thought that he might do a run-in during a couple of different matches at Extreme Rules, and some people even thought that he was going to appear on Monday Night Raw. I don't think Hogan is coming back in to do anything physical. I don't think he's going to be in the ring. I don't think he's definitely not going to be wrestling any matches, definitely not going to wrestle and win any title belts, and I don't even think he's going to be a referee. I don't think Hulk Hogan can get up and down to make 3 counts. The best we can hope for if Hogan has any involvement in a match is he's going to have to be a special enforcer on the outside of the ring, but I'm not even sure if he's going to do that. This is the 30th anniversary of SummerSlam. SummerSlam, the very first one, was in 1988. So I think Hulk Hogan might have a presence on SummerSlam, and I think he should. They should get everybody still living from the main event out there. Get Hogan out there, get DiBiase, Virgil, and Jesse Ventura. I think they are the only living ones. Savage and Liz and Andre are all dead. But if he is at SummerSlam, I don't see it being anything more than just a promo. Remember what he did at WrestleMania 30? Just came out and opened the show and cut a promo with Austin and Rock. I think it'll be something similar to that. So I think anytime that we see Hulk Hogan on TV, it'll pretty much be in a promo or promoting something. I really cannot see Hulk Hogan involved in storylines unless they make a storyline out of this racial shit, unless they have a bunch of black guys come down to the ring and confront Hulk Hogan on Monday Night Raw during his promo. How funny would that be? If Hogan's in the ring and he's cutting a promo and he's apologizing, and then, every black star in the WWE, male and female, all come down to the ring and surround the ring like the Shield used to, and T's attacking him, and you can either do the attack or you can have everybody come in there and forgive him and shake his hand and give him a hug. I don't know. So I think that will be the extent of anything Hulk Hogan has to do in-ring related, just aside from a random appearance, a random promo. That's all I can really see them doing. I don't think Hulk Hogan really has any business being involved in a major storyline or a major match, God forbid. It's just not something that I think Hulk Hogan can physically do. I think WWE wants the Hulk Hogan personality back so they can send him on promotional appearances and shit like that, and he can return to that ambassador role that he pretty much had before he was let go. So there you go. You guys let me know all of your thoughts on this Hulk Hogan situation in the comments below. Are you okay with it? Are you cool about it? Are you indifferent about it? Are you furious about it? Do you think he deserves it? Do you think he doesn't? What do you think his future will be in WWE? What kind of appearances do you think he will make and do? And what do you think this new contract that, if he has not signed yet, he most likely will sign here soon? What do you think it all means? And what do you want to see out of the Hulkster if he is back in the WWE family? Tune back into the channel here in a couple of days. Try Saturday or Sunday, and I will give a overall general discussion of the Extreme Rules pay-per-view and what we are now looking at heading into SummerSlam and what the matches might be. And of course, this coming Monday, when I do my live stream during Monday Night Raw, we are supposedly going to find out who Brock Lesnar will be facing at SummerSlam, because it will be Roman Reigns versus Bobby Lashley one-on-one. The winner gets the match with Brock. So you guys take care, and I'll catch you in a couple of days. Peace.